The red fields of Haven 9 stretched far under the double suns. The wind moved slow through rows of wheat that shimmered like copper light. A man named Elias Rowan worked there every morning, his hands rough and brown from soil and sun. His farm sat at the edge of a valley where storms often rolled through, leaving the air smelling like metal and rain. To anyone who met him, Elias was only a quiet farmer. He fixed his old harvester himself, traded vegetables with his neighbors, and spoke little. Children liked him because he always smiled and shared dried fruit from his pocket. When the sky shimmered one afternoon and a royal ship came down from the clouds, the townsfolk gathered to see. The ship was smooth silver, marked with the crest of the Aryan Dominion. A tall ramp opened and soldiers stepped out first, their armor polished like glass. Behind them came a young woman with violet eyes and long white hair tied with golden cords. Her name was Lady Ceres Valthera, envoy of the Dominion. Her steps were light, but her face looked proud, almost distant, as if the air here was beneath her. Elias watched from the side of the dirt road, hat low over his brow. When Ceres passed, he gave a small nod of greeting. She only glanced at him once, her nose wrinkling at the dust. To her, he was just another settler, one of many humans who scratched a living from the soil. She did not know that the man she ignored once carried a weapon that sang like thunder. Ceres spoke with the mayor about taxes, shipment quotas, and protection rights. The people nodded politely but whispered among themselves after she left. Dominion envoys always came to demand more, never to help. Only Elias stayed calm. He invited her guards to rest by his barn, offering water and bread. The guards thanked him, surprised by his kindness. Ceres did not notice. She was too busy complaining about the dust that clung to her robe. That evening the wind changed. The sky darkened with a strange hum, and the townsfolk heard engines that were not from the Dominion ship. Elias stepped out from his house and saw shapes falling through the clouds, ships painted black marked with skull symbols. Raiders. Everyone knew that sign. They burned colonies, stole food, and left no survivors. The first blast hit the landing site. Fire rolled across the field, setting the wheat alight. The Dominion guards tried to fight back, but their commander was struck down before giving orders. People screamed and ran toward the shelters beneath the hills. Elias ran too, but not away. He helped children climb down the bunker steps, then went back for an old man who could not walk fast. His calm voice steadied the crowd while Ceres hid behind a tractor, clutching her communicator that no longer worked. When the smoke cleared for a moment, pirates stood across the field, armored in mismatched metal. Their leader shouted through a mask, demanding surrender and all supplies. He laughed when he saw Elias standing alone in front of the burning crops. "Look at this," the raider sneered. A farmer trying to play hero. Elias raised his hand slowly, his voice level. "Take what you want. Just leave them be." The raider laughed again and pointed a weapon at a child who had not reached the shelter. Something in Elias's face changed then, quiet and cold. He knelt, pressing his hand into the dirt as if feeling the heartbeat of the world. The pirates laughed harder, thinking he prayed, but the ground began to tremble. A soft light rose from under the soil where his hand touched. Elias dug into the earth and pulled free a long metal hilt covered in dust and roots. For a breath, nothing happened. Then the hilt came alive with a low hum that grew louder and deeper until the air itself vibrated. Ceres's eyes widened. The blade that formed was not metal but pure white light, carved with floating runes that twisted like stars. Every Dominion sensor in her broken wristband flashed red, unable to read it. Elias stood tall now, the glow of the weapon shining against his weathered face. "You've had your chance," he said softly. The pirates fired first. Lines of plasma cut across the field, but Elias moved faster than her eyes could follow. He stepped through the fire, the blade humming in his hand. Bolts split apart before touching him, dissolving in midair. He swung once, and the nearest pirate's weapon shattered into dust. Another tried to rush him, but Elias turned, the blade tracing a white arc that left a trail of burning air. Ceres crouched behind the tractor, watching the impossible. The man she thought was a farmer moved with balance and calm purpose, not rage. He didn't shout or boast. Each motion was careful, clean, and final. When the last pirate tried to flee, his ship rose into the air, engines whining. Elias raised his weapon and pointed upward. A beam of white light struck the engine core, cutting it apart without explosion, only a bright flash that faded into silence. When it was over, the field was still. Smoke drifted through broken stalks of wheat. The pirates lay scattered, their armor glowing faintly from the heat. Elias stood among them, breathing slowly. The blade's light faded as he pressed the hilt back into the soil. The hum quieted until there was only the whisper of the wind again. Sarah stepped out carefully. She could barely speak. That weapon, what is it? Elias wiped his hands on his trousers and looked up at the sky. Something I hoped never to use again, he said. You're not just a farmer. Maybe I am now, he answered. But once long ago I carried this blade for the same reason I hold a plow, to protect what grows. The surviving settlers came out from hiding. Children ran to him, clinging to his legs. He smiled faintly and patted their heads, his eyes heavy with sadness. Sarah watched the man who had just saved them all kneel to comfort a crying child. The contrast struck her harder than any weapon. A warrior who fought like lightning yet held a child's hand as gently as a breeze. Night came slowly to Haven 9. Fires were put out, wounded tended, and silence returned. The envoy's guards whispered to each other about the blade, calling it an Earth relic, a myth from before the Galactic War. Sarah sat near the fire, unable to stop glancing at Elias, who repaired a broken irrigation drone as if nothing had happened. She wanted to ask more, but something in his eyes stopped her. They were calm but distant, filled with memories she could not read. When dawn rose, Elias stood beside the field, now half burned but still standing. He looked at the horizon, then at the buried place where the blade rested. For him, war was not glory. It was a shadow he carried quietly while tending his crops. Sarah approached and said softly, "You could have left us. Why stay?" Elias looked at her with a small smile. "Because this land needs hands that heal, not just ones that destroy. Someone has to remember that." The wind moved again through the fields, lifting ash into the sunlight. The colony was safe for now. And though the people called him hero, Elias Rowan only saw himself as what he had always been, a farmer guarding his home. The smoke from the battle drifted away over the fields of Haven 9. The people slowly came out of hiding, still frightened but alive. The pirates' ships were destroyed and only quiet wind moved through the valley. Elias Rowan walked among the broken machines, checking if anyone was hurt. His clothes were torn and there was dust on his face, but his voice stayed calm as he helped others. When the children ran to hug him, he smiled gently and told them everything would be fine. Lady Saris Valthera watched from a distance, still trying to understand what she had seen. The man she thought was just a simple farmer had fought like a legend. His weapon was not from any Dominion design she knew. Its light, its movement, and even the energy pattern were unknown to her scanners. She could not stop wondering, who was he really? That night the settlement was quiet. Fires burned low in metal barrels and the stars shone bright. Sarah sat near the remains of her ruined ship, reading old records from her datapad. She searched every Dominion file she could access, but none matched the blade Elias had used. Then she found something hidden deep in the archives, an old Earth file marked Wardens of the Soil. The words sent a strange feeling through her. The file told of ancient warriors who were both soldiers and builders. They protected frontier colonies during the First Expansion Age. Their weapons were made from a dying star's fragments bonded to the user's will. When wars ended, they buried those weapons and returned to the fields to live as farmers. Saris closed the file, her heart heavy with new respect. Elias was not just a farmer. He was one of those forgotten wardens. He had chosen peace over power. Morning came soft and golden. The colonists worked to repair what they could. Elias led them quietly, giving advice on how to rebuild damaged roofs and replant seeds. Saris approached him while he fixed a broken water pipe. "You were a warden, weren't you?" she asked. Elias looked up, his expression thoughtful. "That was a long time ago," he said. "Why hide it?" "Because war is never something to be proud of," he replied. "I came here to build, not to destroy again." Before she could speak more, a shadow passed over the sun. Both of them looked up. A large cruiser floated above the valley, silver and blue, the Dominion fleet. It had come after receiving Saris's distress signal. Soldiers in gleaming armor descended from shuttles and surrounded the field. The captain, a tall man with sharp eyes, stepped forward. "Lady Saris, we tracked your beacon," he said formally. "Our sensors detected a forbidden energy weapon used here." "Where is it?" Saris froze. Elias stood still beside her, his face calm. The captain's tone turned sharp. "By Dominion law, all advanced relics belong to the Crown. Surrender it immediately, Elias did not answer. His gaze turned toward the buried soil where the blade rested. The soldiers noticed and raised their weapons. "If you resist, we will take it by force," the captain warned. Sarah stepped in front of Elias. "You can't," she said firmly. "That weapon is human origin. Dominion law doesn't cover relics from old Earth." The captain frowned. "Are you protecting him, my lady?" "I'm protecting the treaty," she said, her voice steady though her hands shook. The soldiers hesitated, unsure whom to obey. Elias looked around at the frightened colonists who had gathered again. He sighed quietly and took a step forward. "There's no need for more threats," he said. He knelt and placed his hand on the ground again. The earth rumbled softly. The same faint hum rose through the soil as before. The Dominion soldiers raised their guns, but Saris lifted her hand. "Wait," she said. Light spread in patterns under their feet, lines of energy forming symbols that had been sleeping beneath the colony for centuries. Towers that looked like stones began to rise from the ground, their surfaces glowing blue. The cruiser above changed direction as its sensors went wild. "What is happening?" the captain shouted. Elias's voice was calm, almost gentle. "This world was once an Earth outpost. Its defense grid is still buried below. You should not threaten what protects life." A column of light shot into the sky from the valley, touching the clouds. The Dominion cruiser turned sharply, alarms echoing through the air. They recognized the energy signature, one that could destroy a fleet in seconds if awakened fully. "Deactivate it," the captain shouted, panic in his voice. Elias stood looking at him without anger. "I can't, it's older than me. It only answers to one purpose, defense." The Dominion soldiers began retreating toward their ships. The captain glared at Saris. "You've made a mistake, my lady. You've chosen a side." Saris lifted her chin. "I chose to honor peace." Within moments, the Dominion ships pulled back into the sky, vanishing through the clouds. The defense towers dimmed again, sinking slowly back into the earth until only soft lines of blue light remained under the soil. The valley grew quiet. Saris turned to Elias. "You saved us again. You didn't have to." Elias gave a tired smile. "Everyone deserves a second chance. Even this land." The colonists cheered when they realized the Dominion had gone. Children ran around laughing, pointing at the fading glow beneath their feet. The people began to rebuild with new hope. Later, as evening fell, Saris stood beside Elias while he watched the horizon. The sky was pink and gold. "You could have left with them," she said softly. "Why stay here?" Elias looked down at his hands. "I made too many mistakes in war. Here I can do something right. I can grow food, build homes, and help people live. That's enough." "You're a strange man, Elias Rowan," Saris said with a small smile. "Maybe," he answered, "but the galaxy needs strange people, the ones who choose peace when everyone else prepares for battle." The wind carried the scent of rain as they stood in silence. Far below, the energy lines under the soil pulsed once like a heartbeat, alive but resting. Days passed, and the colony returned to its rhythm. The people spoke of Elias's courage, but he never called himself a hero. When someone thanked him, he only said, "Just doing my part." The story of the farmer with the shining blade spread beyond Haven 9. Travelers whispered it in space stations and ports, calling him the guardian of the fields. Saris eventually repaired her ship with help from the colonists. When the day came for her to leave, she walked out to the fields where Elias was planting seeds. "If the Dominion comes again," she said, "they'll remember this place." Elias nodded. "Then we'll remind them again what humans stand for." She smiled faintly. "Not power?" "No," he said, patting the soil. "Roots." When her ship rose into the air, Saris looked down at the man below. He stood alone in the golden field, his hand resting on the soil that hid the blade of a dying star. In that moment, she understood something deep. Humans were not the strongest because of their weapons, but because of their will to protect, to build, to keep going when the universe itself tried to break them. As Haven 9's sun set behind the mountains, the glow beneath the fields pulsed again, soft and steady. The soil whispered around the buried blade, keeping it safe. Elias Rowan, once a warrior, now only a farmer, walked back to his home. Yet to those who knew, he was more than that. He was the quiet proof that peace could still stand guard.